Hi everyone, welcome to Giraffe 102. Today we are going to learn all about the Giraffe Flow Builder and generative design. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping things. If you have any questions, you can feel free to unmute and ask while I'm working through the presentation. During the presentation, try to keep your questions to the topic of generative design and the Flow Builder. And then if we have time at the end, I'd be happy to also answer any other questions about Giraffe that you might have as well. If you don't feel comfortable unmuting, feel free to just drop your question in the meeting chat as well. And with that, let's get started here. The first thing I'm going to do is throw up a poll. And I'd just like to hear from you what you are interested in seeing me build today. There's a few different types of flows. You can build almost anything that you can imagine using the Flow Builder, and I'd love to demonstrate something that is especially pertinent to your workflows. So just throw a vote in there when you have a chance, and I'll get started with some just basic information. So when we're talking about generative design, in the world of architecture and real estate, it refers to an iterative process where the computer helps you generate different versions or different ideas, and it does a lot of the manual labor for you based on a set of instructions that you as the human user have given the computer. We call those instructions algorithms. And in Giraffe, all of those things come together in what we call a flow. And the reason that we call them flows in Giraffe is because sort of the visual user interface of building these sets of instructions looks like a flow chart in Giraffe. We tried to make it pretty easy to understand what instructions were creating which outputs, and that's why we chose to use the flowchart style interface. So if we look just at what a classic Giraffe geometry is, it is just a rectangle with a usage applied to it, and it has properties. This is called a feature in Giraffe, and I just modeled this feature manually. But what we're doing when we create flows is having the computer model a lot of features for us automatically. So it really helps you to automate your workflows, move a little bit faster, and maybe spend time working on things that are more interesting rather than drawing a bunch of parking lots or creating really detailed apartment layouts when you're early on in a feasibility stage. So I want to show you with a simple example kind of how the Flow Builder works. So to do that, I'm going to start with just a line. I'm using the L shortcut on my keyboard to start that line, and I'm just going to double click to end it. Now this line that I've drawn doesn't have any usage applied. It doesn't really have any information except that it's about 193, almost 194 feet long. Doesn't tell us very much, but using the Flow Builder, we can turn this line into something that's much more useful for us. So with this element selected, I can see in my properties palette here on the left-hand side that I have the Open Flow Builder button. And the Open Flow Builder button gives us all of these options. And when I was talking about algorithms earlier, all of these options are little snippets or pieces of a larger set of instructions that you could give by building a flow. In Giraffe, we call all of these transforms, and each transform is basically its own algorithm. It has its own set of instructions, and you can combine them together in a flow to create a more complex geometry. In this example, what I want to do is just turn this line into an array of points. So I'm going to select this points along line option, and you'll see that the line transformed into, instead of that line geometry, now it is a set of multiple points. How did it know where those points should be and what the spacing should be? And that is stored in that that transforms instructions. So there are two places to look at the instructions for transforms, and it's really just, it's the same, exactly the same thing. It's just two different ways to look at it. So the first way is to open that flow builder again. And here you see our, flowchart style view where it's really clear what's happening. So this feature, the initial element here, is that line that I drew. The second element here in blue is that transform that I applied, that array transform. And the third element here in green is the output that is being generated on the map. So this green here is what we are seeing here on the map. In order to change what that, what those number of dots is and what the spacing is, I would need to edit the instructions. So I can click on array and open that. And here I see all of the settings that are available for this transform. So maybe I want my spacing to be, maybe I want it to be 45 feet. I could add additional spacing. So maybe I want it to be sort of irregular. And then it will create a pattern of those different spacings. And you can kind of see a preview start to come through as I do that. There's other settings here. The purpose of this webinar is not to go through the settings in detail for every transform. That is documented in the knowledge base. And you can also always ask our AI assistant about what those elements do. So feel free to try that out on your own after the call, but just know that all of these fields here are different sets of instructions that can be applied to each transform. Now that I've set what I want my spacing to be, I need to apply a usage to this output so that it's actually looking like something and it's actually calculating something in my analytics. So there's a few different point-based usages that are in Giraffe, and one of my favorite ones is the tree usage. And the tree usage does exactly what it sounds like. Places a tree on each one of those points when my internet catches up with me here. There we go. Looks like the round doesn't want to generate. Sometimes that happens when I've been on the dev version of Giraffe. It's just a caching issue. So here now I have a tree that's generating every 45 feet along this line. And you'll notice that it's parametric. As I change this line, the trees generatively add every 45 feet regardless. That is the key of what's useful about the Flow Builder, is doing this kind of work that used to be very manual, and now you can do it very quickly. So instead of placing each one of these trees individually by putting down a dot after a dot after a dot, I can just turn a line into an array of trees and then edit that to match where I need that to be on my project. So before we go any further, are there any questions about the basics of the Flow Builder that we just went through? Like I said at the beginning, feel free to unmute and ask your question live, or you can throw it in the meeting chat if you would rather. All right, seems like everything is pretty clear here. So the poll results are showing that each of you voted for something different. So it doesn't really help me know which one might be most useful. We do have one person who didn't vote. I'm not sure who that is. I can't see who voted for what. But if you'd like to throw a vote on there, you might be the deciding person. And that'll help us know what to build here. It does look like, we've got a good mix of some residential and then some more generic things. Why don't I do this? I'm going to start with the boulevard with trees, bike path, and parking because that one's really easy to build on what we just looked at. And then maybe we'll get some more votes for a different, more complicated one, and we'll go back to that. So again, I am just going to start with a line and just throw that line down. And what I'm doing to this line is I want it to be a road. I want trees on either side. I want a bike path and I want parking. So there's going to be quite a few elements in this design. And I'm going to do all of that in the Flow Builder. So the first thing I want to do is actually offset this line. I want this center line here to be going down between two roads on either side. So I'm going to add an offset so that my initial road that I draw is actually offset from my center. And I am going to change that output to road so it's easy to see. Here I can change the settings of that road. And if I click Open Flow Builder, I of course see my full flow here. One thing that I forgot to do before I offset that I find really helpful for roads is to add the round corners transform as well. So this gets us into how we start manipulating this flow and adding more algorithms to the entire flow chart. So these little elements here are actually all buttons, and the buttons do specific things. The first one we're going to look at is this plus button, which does probably what you imagine. It adds another transform into the row. So if I click plus here, it's going to add this new node to this flow here, and it's telling me to click to define. So I'm just going to click on it, and then all of my transform options come up here. And like I was mentioning, the one I want to use is round corners. And then here I can just put in my settings for round corners. Maybe I want it to be Bezier. So now I have this line that will have rounded corners, and we'll see that if I bend the line here. So that gives me this really nice curve. If I open back up the Flow Builder, like I was saying before, we wanted to offset the lines from the center line and have a road on either side of the center line, and maybe we'll do something like have a green space down the middle. So this brings us to the second option here, which is this split button. And this split copies everything from the split forward into another branch. So I've got my offset line and my road on one side of that center line, and now I actually want to just do the same thing on the other side. So now I've got one line that I've drawn, and it's drawing two roads for me. Everyone's still with me here? Feel free to drop any questions in the chat as we go along. And then, like I was mentioning, maybe we also want to add some trees down the center. That would mean that we need to add yet another output. So here we've got these two outputs, they're both road. I want to add another output that's going to be an array of trees like we looked at the beginning. So what I'm doing is clicking this split button. So rather than the copy split button, this one just adds another whole new branch, and it gives me a new output. And then just like we were before, I can add another transformation to that output. Transformation I want is array. The usage I want is tree. I'm going to use that pine tree again. I'm going to add some other settings to this. So these trees are massive. I need just more space between them. There we go. So now I have my 2 roads, my trees going down the center of the roads. And as I change this road, it dynamically updates. Now we could go even further here and add more outputs. And it's all using the same kind of logic that we've been using throughout. I can just open the flow, and then maybe I want, on one side of the road, I want to have some parking spaces. So maybe I'll offset that line again, another 15 feet. I'll offset that line again to be 18 to be the depth of the parking spaces. And then I will add parking lots to that to make them, 18 by 9.5. So with just a couple of clicks, I created, hundreds of parking spaces along this road. And I did that all very quickly, which should be an encouragement to you as you start using this. It'll get really easy to know sort of what transformations you want to use and how you can combine those together. But what's important to remember is that it's all really just giving a set of instructions to the computer to know how to edit that original geometry. So you're kind of thinking, okay, I want to have, 2 different roads. That means I have to output 2 lines and apply the road usage to those lines. I want to have a row of perpendicular parking spaces. That means I need to create another geometry that is, 18 feet deep to accommodate those parking spaces. And then I need to apply the parking space transform to draw the actual spaces. So it's all just using the logic of if you were going to draw it manually, but instead of drawing it manually, you're just inputting those numbers into the algorithm and then it draws it for you. So now that I have this road and parking spaces and trees all designed, what if I want to reuse this? This is a question we get a lot. You're probably all aware of the lightning bolt here that has these sort of pre-saved suggestion flows created by the Giraffe team. But you'll note that these flows that you create in your project don't show up in the lightning bolt here. So how can I reuse this? I might want to apply this boulevard to all of my roads in my project. Well, luckily, you can now using the eyedropper command. And this is one of my favorite commands in Giraffe, and it's super easy to use. You just select all of the geometry that you want to copy your flow to. So I've just drawn a few lines by copying these roads from the map. I'm going to select all of them, and using the shortcut Y, I'm just going to then click on this other flow that I created, and it instantly copies all of the settings from this flow to all of these other geometries. Really fast and easy to reuse that way. So you don't have to, redo all of that work of creating that flow over and over again. You can just create it once and use that Y eyedropper command to copy it to everything else in the project that might be relevant. So I want to pause there again. Do we have any questions about, sort of creating these branches and what the different buttons might do? Does everything up to this point kind of make sense? And again, feel free to unmute and ask your question live if you wish, or type in the chat if that is more convenient for you. I'll give it about 5 to 10 seconds to see if anyone has any questions. All right, seems like we're pretty clear. And it is time to look at our poll here, and it looks like we do have a winner. Someone would like to see how to build the tuck under townhomes flow. This one's actually a really great one to learn the flow builder, because there's a lot of inputs and outputs to create tuck under townhomes. So this is a good one for training. I will say, if any of you want to follow along while we build this flow, feel free to bring up Giraffe on your second screen and sort of follow along with me. And maybe you'll start getting that muscle memory going for this type of work here. All right, so the first step in creating a flow is always determining what you want your initial geometry to be. For tuck under townhomes, I think I want to use a rectangle or a polygon, because my townhome development is probably something even similar to this, where it's a block and there's probably townhomes on either side, and maybe there's even an alley down the middle where the car parking could go. So I'm going to start with that rectangle and then apply all of my transforms to that. So here, always the first step is clicking Open Flow Builder and selecting that initial transformation. And the one I'm going to use here is subdivide to lots. I always love using the subdivide to lots transform to make townhomes. It makes it really quick and easy, because it's purpose designed to create parcels that are up against each other. And then it even can generate building envelopes, and you can give it instructions on if those building envelopes should be touching or not. So if I jump into my flow builder here, this is the first example today where the transform could have multiple outputs. So you'll see right now the default that I added just adds the site output, and that is just the parcels. But there's also the option to add an envelope, and that is the building envelope that can also be generated. So here, if I apply some usages to these to make it a little bit easier to visualize, apply the townhome usage to this one. Now we see that I have created parcels and I've created buildings, and it's really just all I've done is drawn this rectangle. So now we need to input more instructions to make sure these townhomes make sense, that their size is something that is, buildable and correct. So I'm going to click into the subdivide lots and put in my instructions. So in subdivide lots, there are a lot of settings. Again, the point today isn't to teach you how to use a particular transformation. It's to teach you how to put together multiple transformations in the flow builder. So I'm just going to kind of rocket through this. But we do, again, have really great documentation for the subdivision transform in our knowledge base. And you can always ask the AI assistant a question about it if you want to understand what some of these fields mean. Of course, you can also always reach out to me if you have questions as well. So I'm going to make these be 25 feet wide, so they make a little bit more sense as townhomes. And I am going to set, this is key for creating townhomes, my side setback is going to be 0, so that they are touching on the sides. And then my front and rear setbacks, because of the size of this lot, need to be much larger. So my rear setback is probably going to be like 25. Yeah, it might even be bigger than that. Maybe we have like 50-foot setbacks. And my front setback, maybe I just want it to be 5 feet. So now when I save this, I'm actually gonna measure these real quickly to see how huge they are. I just want to make sure. Yeah, those are still pretty big. So I'm going to increase that rear setback to maybe be 75 feet. There we go. So now you can see really clearly we've got these parcels and these townhomes on the parcels. The townhomes are all connected together. And we've basically set ourselves up to have a nice rear alley through the center of these. And probably because we're doing tuck unders, that rear alley will have drives on either side and our parking structure underneath. So the next step of this is creating the parking structure underneath these homes. So a big thing about the tuck under townhomes is often in the front of your home, you walk in and there is sort of a small vestibule, and then it goes straight upstairs to your living space. And then on the rear of the townhome is a parking garage that's attached, and it could be 1 car, 2 car, but that structure is not included in the living area, so you're going to want to make sure that it's a different giraffe usage. And you also want to make sure that you're not counting it as a unit, so that your unit counts are correct. So there's a couple of steps we need to do to make sure that those things are all happening correctly. I'm just adding a site boundary so we can start to get our calculations over here. All right, so let's take a dive in here. So the first step that we want to do is we actually want to take another output from the envelope here, and we're going to turn that into our parking structure. So we obviously don't want the parking structure to be the entire envelope. We talked about how the parking structure needs to be just a portion of the envelope. So I am going to use my internet will catch up with me here. I'm going to use the select edge transformation. It's not wanting to pull up. 1 second. There we go. Okay. I might just save this project real quick since my internet is being a little bit fussy today. And then we'll try that again once it's saved. All right. So I'm going to add another output here. There we go. And I want my edge selector. And I'm going to select the front of these. And then I'm going to offset that by, maybe we want these to be 25 feet. Give it a polygon output. And then the usage we're going to apply to this is townhome. But I'm going to remove the dwelling count so that this lower level doesn't count as a separate dwelling from the upper level. Now, if you wanted it to, maybe these are more like a duplex situation. That is also possible, but that's not the goal of this design. And we'll see when I go to look at it that I offset it on the wrong side. So that's really easy. I'll just change which side it's offset on. And I'm going to want to make sure that it always goes on the bottom. So there we go. We've got that offset there. I'm going to need to offset it a little bit further, it looks like, for it to make sense. There. So now we have that lower level offset. And then I'm going to do the same thing again. I am going to take a split off the end here. I'm going to add that edge selector. And this time I'm going to select this edge. Offset a line again. And this time my output is going to be my car park output. And I want it to be multi-deck, but only have one level. Let's see if yeah, perfect. So what I'm noticing here is that my parking, man, this internet is killing me. What I'm noticing is that my parking structure's floor-to-floor height is different from my townhome floor-to-floor height. So I'm going to want to edit that. And this is where looking at the generated features outputs are really easy. So I could open up the Flow Builder, navigate around, find the car park, and add a property that way. But I don't have to, because this list here is all of your green outputs in the Flow Builder. So one-to-one, they are the exact same thing, just two different ways to look at it. So if I want to edit something about this car park output, all I have to do is click on car park and add any settings here that I wish. So I'm going to add the floor-to-floor property and override that floor-to-floor. And let's see if I remember how tall the townhome is. I do not remember. So I'm just going to check in the usage. It's 10.5. And now that parking structure has the exact same plate height as the townhome structure. So now that I've created this, my townhomes are dynamic and I can change the size as I wish. What I am noticing, of course, and I'm sure you're all noticing it too, is that, it isn't mirrored. And maybe I want it to be mirrored. So if I felt really strongly that it should be, having the parking structures facing and having a road down the center, I would actually make this into, instead of having 2 rows of townhomes, I'd make it have 1 row of townhomes and then draw a second geometry. So I'm going to toggle off split on spine. So I only get 1 output. I'm going to reduce the size. And then I can copy that using Alt copy. And then this one, I'm just going to flip it. So I go into subdivide lots. I should be able to flip. And flip did not work. So I actually need to have change the orientation of the bottom one. So my offset line, I need it to go left, and my offset line, I need it to go right. No, I need to do, I know what I need to do. I need to make the first one into car park and the second one into townhome. So, as with a lot of design things, it does take some trial and error to get what you're looking for. But what's nice is that you can reuse it after you've created it. So it's not like you're doing trial and error every time. You're probably going to make this once, save it into your design library, and reuse it over and over again. And then town, this will be townhome. So I find it really fun to, use all of these settings, play around with it, get something that works really well for me. And then, you can share it with your team and reuse it and get a lot of advantage out of taking the time to build this so that you're not drawing these townhomes individually. That could take a long time to draw every single one of these one by one by one. It would be kind of a pain. No one wants to spend their whole afternoon doing that. So yeah, that is how I would build tuck under townhomes. And like I mentioned before, you can use the Y command with these as well. So maybe I have another bank of townhomes over here, and this one I want to face this direction. And all I'm doing is using that Y shortcut to grab those and copy them over. Any questions about that kind of workflow, about using the subdivision algorithm, about making decisions about what kinds of transforms to use? How does everyone feel after watching that? Do you feel like you could go build something like this? Go ahead, Mark. You should be able to unmute yourself. Oops. Maybe that was a misclick on the raised hand. All right.
Hey, Holly,
Well, we have gotten through the main content of the Flow Builder webinar. I would love to open up any. I'd like to open up the floor for any questions whatsoever. You can ask me questions about generative design. You can ask me just general questions about Giraffe. Ask me questions about why Comcast internet is so terrible in its hometown of Philadelphia, as I struggled today. It's open for questions now. If you don't have any questions, thank you so much for coming. We'll post the recording of this to YouTube soon, so you can rewatch it again there and share it with your team as well if that's helpful. I'll hang out for a little bit for anyone who might want to ask a question. Thanks.
hey Holly, this is this is kind of a curveball question, and you
Sure.
don't have to necessarily show me or show us, but maybe just talk through what your process would look like if you're trying to solve for kind of an irregular parcel. So maybe it's not a perfectly square or rectangular parcel. Like, how would you build out something that would solve for populating these subdivisions on an irregular parcel?
Yeah. So one of my favorite ways to do that, if I draw a polygon, is actually sort of doing a double subdivision. So I might do an initial subdivision and I will put in much larger. So maybe I want these lots to be like, 50,000 square feet or something. Really, really big. I have yeah, maybe just the size of this polygon is not big enough for that to work. And maybe I want my frontages to be like 100 feet, like real big.
Mhm.
Maybe even bigger than that. Maybe I want them to be like 300 feet in this case. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now I've got, sort of subdivision of this area into larger parcels. And then I can take that and further subdivide it. So it helps me to sort of break up the area and then, oh, it doesn't want me to do it. It's probably like my points are too close together. There we go. Let's try again. Yeah. So then I took that larger subdivision and then divided it again into maybe lots that make more sense for each of them to have a single home on it. Um, so it gives you sort of a framework to start with. Sometimes on that first one, I will also like round the corners on these lots. Round corners. So they look a little bit prettier, you know. Um, and this sort of gets you to a place where you're at least thinking big picture about what makes sense for this subdivision of this larger space. It wasn't happy with me doing that. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Perfect. That's great.
Cool. Awesome. Um, and I see Jack has a question about designing a facade. So let's do that. So the facade, the transform that you use the most for designing a facade is stroke dash. And you can do a few different things with it. So I could do a facade all the way around a building. Actually, let's even make this. Okay, so I'm gonna make this a commercial building. And I think it has, I know what's going on here. Need to add a new one to make it commercial. Oh, actually, I wanted this one to be commercial. Sorry, just getting set up here. So I've got my commercial building to start, and I've inset it, and it's inset really far. I probably only want it to be inset, maybe 1 foot if we're doing a facade here. So I've got my outside of the facade, and then the inside is representing all of that commercial space that would be inside the building once you've created it. And now what I'm going to start doing is taking this original rectangle, which is the full size, and start turning that into a series of just dashed lines that I can turn into elements in that facade. So my stroke dash array allows me to divide this line into a series of strokes and dashes. And I can set those to be different sizes. So maybe I've got windows that, it's 25 feet. And then between each window, there's a 1 foot mullion. So I've got my strokes that are my windows. And I will just turn these into 1 foot. And I'm going to just make it context for the purpose of this. and make it blue so that it looks like windows. I would recommend creating a window usage, but just for the demonstration, I'm going to do it this way. And actually want it to be, I'll just make it commercial so that it gets, now why isn't it stacking up? I think I confused it again. Commercial. I'm gonna make it, whoops. Trying to add that shiny property so it looks like a window. And I need to, yes, I know what I did. Yeah, I didn't actually turn it into a polygon. So there, now we've got this series of windows going around, you can see, and they look kind of shiny. And then I can turn those dashes into something that just looks like mullions. So I'll probably make them black. And I gotta add my offset. And there I get my mullions in between. And I should control the levels on the top here so that I can make everything the same more easily. Levels. And I can also add my floor to floor. So you can kind of see that it's just a series of strokes and dashes that start creating that layout. And then you can further customize it. You can say which edges you want it to apply to. So maybe one side of the building has a different facade than another side. Got some little skinny pieces here that want to stack apparently. So let's see. This corner piece just wants to misbehave. What I could do, yes, get rid of the offset, maybe give it a 1 foot corner gap. Almost. It is a lot of trial and error with, you know, if I was being more careful about what my exact distances were, I also probably wouldn't be having this problem, but there you go. So using that stroke dash transform and then turning it into basically panels is how you would create a facade. So you would just customize sort of the spacings here, your offsets, however you need it to be for your project. Does that make sense, Jack? Awesome. Great. Does anyone else on the call have a question? Well, if there are no more questions, I think that is good for today. So like I mentioned, we will upload this to our YouTube channel so you can watch it back again. And if you ever have any questions about the Flow Builder, feel free to search our knowledge base in the info hub. If you just put in Flow Builder, you'll get all of our documentation popping up here. And then you can also ask our AI assistant a question. So if you wanted to know, what does the stroke dash array do? What does offset line do? Just ask it a question and it'll answer you. And then of course you can always just email us directly. I'm Holly at giraffe.build. I'm happy to help you out. So thanks again, everyone, for coming to Giraffe 102. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. And if you're in the US, happy Memorial Day weekend. Talk to you all soon. Thanks.